North Carolina A&T just pulled in a transfer quarterback out of the portal, and it's going to be his job, most likely, to revive a dead passing attack. Oh, yeah. It's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire and site expert at Who Dat Dish. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you put down your first $5 winning bet. So go ahead and go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. We wrap up today's episode with a two-part about Bethune-Cookman baseball. Who are they facing in the regional round? It starts off with Florida State and also a quick review on the last time that Bethune-Cookman was in this position. But I think the fact that the Wildcats won the SWAC is a moment for Coach Hernandez to rejoice. It is a moment in which he has joined a fraternity of winning Bethune-Cookman coaches, and we'll talk about that in segment 2. Hopefully, Champ Long can have a similar type of impact on his team. No, he's not a coach. No, he's not a Bethune-Cookman. No, he's not in the SWAC. But in the CAA, I believe that he is setting up to be North Carolina A&T starting quarterback in 2025. A&T has had a terrible passing attack. It has been absolutely horrendous over the last 2 years, and that was the Vincent Brown era. I'm glad that that era is over, not from a fan standpoint because I'm not a North Carolina A&T alum or fan, but I have said it before. I think that the product that was put on the field for A&T was unbecoming of that university. And I think it's time for a change. It's been time for a change. And now we'll see if a change is on the way. We have Sean Gibbs, who is coming in to lead A&T, and I expect him to be a run-heavy coach. I expect that they are going to run the ball a lot this year, but you still need a passing attack that was much better than the one that we've seen over the last 2 years. I don't think that you bring, I've said this before, right? You bring in transfer quarterbacks at this point in the year to be starters. But let's get more specific to A&T. I don't think you see Champ Long come in from Maryland if Kevin White doesn't get injured during the spring. I really don't. I believe that the injury to Kevin White, though they brought in multiple quarterbacks, including Austin Hooker, Austin, I hope I said that. I hope my drawl makes it clear I'm saying AL, not Austin as in the city, but Alston Hooker. But you brought in a bunch of quarterbacks, but it was clear it was Kevin White. And when Kevin White goes down with injury, you go to get another quarterback. I believe you look at him as being your guy. It's not going to be given to him. I expect that it'll be a Hooker versus Long competition in the summer. But for the intent of this conversation, let's make the assumption that Long is going to be the starter so we can talk about how he impacts the team. And while I'm not really worried about the fact that he doesn't have any experience, Long has one completion to his name on the collegiate level. And for most people, that would be concerning-ish. The reason I put an ish in there is if you want a veteran who has experience, it'll be a concern. If you're thinking coming in from a big school, having a little bit more under your belt, you're not going to get that out of a player with one completion. But the reason I say ish is at quarterback, I'm not really worried about what you didn't do. Really, any position. This isn't even just a quarterback thing. What you didn't do at the FBS level doesn't matter to me. If you come over as a transfer player who has never played, it is not a detraction of who you are. I view it as just the inability to be concrete on who you are. It's a big difference. It's not something that I can't praise you too much, but I won't detract from you either. And that's kind of where Long stands. Long had a solid high school career. You have to wonder if that's even going to transfer. I don't really like getting hyped around players who come in from the portal who have high school as their highlight on the resume. I really don't, unless it's a season ago. If it was 2, 3 years ago and the best thing you did or the most time you saw was in high school, I'm not sitting here getting excited about that. I'll address it like I'm about to do now because it allows me to know what kind of player you were. For example, a player who didn't run the ball at all in high school probably is not going to turn into a runner. I can assume that is going to be a pocket passer. If you're talking about, and this is more so from quarterback position, as far as other position, you have to actually watch their film to break down styles of play. But if you are, or for example, a lot of running backs kind of come into this where they are known for running the football, but they weren't really known for catching the ball. So now I have to wonder, can you be a pass catcher as well? That is a question mark. But if you shown the ability to run and pass, I know I can get that out of you. I know that's something that's in your game plan. As far as as far as Champ Long goes, he spent 2 years at Maryland, didn't see the field much, but when he was in high school, he was a guy who had 8 touchdowns on the ground his senior year. Paired that with 31 through the air. We know he can throw the ball. We knew he was going to be a guy who can throw the football, but we also know he's a guy who can run it. So I expect some sort of dual threat ability. You got that with White. So it's not as if this is new. It's not as if you have to change your offense for a quarterback who has the ability to move. That is not a thing you have to be concerned about. Matter of fact, if you look at some of the guys in the recruiting class out of high school for A&T this year, at least one of them was described directly as a speedster. His ability to run the football was compared to Kevin White. So I know that A&T is prepared for this moment. Now to why one pass attempt or one completion doesn't concern me a little bit further. I'm still ready to give him the crown, right? This is the important part. I'm still ready to give Champ Long the starting position at quarterback. Excuse me. I'm still ready to give Champ Long the starting quarterback position at A&T, even though he only has one completion, because as you go through that quarterback room, it's not a lot of experience anyway. So it's not as if you have a player who's saying, look at me, I have 2.5 seasons worth of experience somewhere else. That's not what you're looking at. You're looking at a bunch of guys who have not done a lot, regardless of how long you've been in school. I'm starting to look at experience through a different light, through a different lens. It's not as much where or how long you've been around. It's what you have done. For example, Kevin White had the most experience out there. Kevin White had 160 attempts over 2 seasons. That's not a lot. That's not a lot of experience. I know that he's injured, so we're not talking about him so much. But Noah Sanders, just rushing stats. Braxton Thomas has 46 passes, 151 yards, 1 interception. If we're being honest here, these guys don't have a lot of time under the belt. Austin Hooker, he came back home after a year with FAMU, but he doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt. I'm not here to say that Champ Long is the most experienced quarterback in the room, but what I'm saying is it's a lot of inexperienced quarterbacks in that room. So when I look at Long's one completion, you might say, why would you give him the job even though he only has one completion? He should have to compete. A, yes, he is going to compete. I expect it to be Long versus Hooker. But then B, you bring him in at this point in the season after the spring. You've evaluated some people. Clearly, you're not satisfied. And then lastly, I just kind of think that experience gets thrown out the window when no one else has experience. That's the way that I view it. But speaking of experience, something that you couldn't make up was how Bethune-Cookman made it to the finals or made it to the tournament. And you got to give Coach Hernandez a lot of credit for the team that he's built, not only in 2025, but the few years leading up to this season as well. As we continue with Locked On HBCU, I'll give him that credit. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As I'm recording this, it is $69.96. I'm such a nerd. That's super cool to me. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are absolutely dusting the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that tonight it'll be interesting to see if the New York Knicks close out the series, or excuse me, if the Indiana Pacers close out the series against the New York Knicks. That's something that we should have all our eyes on. The Thunder have punched their ticket to the NBA Finals. I believe that the Pacers will do so very soon. Do you think that's tonight? If you do, go ahead and go with the Pacers. If you don't, go with the Timberwolves. It is just that simple. Make your money. Matter of fact, if you're new to FanDuel, put down a $5 bet. If that wins, you get $200 in bonus bets back to you. Just go to fanduel.com. All you have to do is go to fanduel.com and make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA to break down the Western, or excuse me, just the Eastern Conference Finals and kind of recap the Western Conference Finals. Now, as we push forward, we're about to go into our own tournament, and this is the NCAA baseball tournament with Bethune-Cookman involved. I personally look at this moment as a huge victory lap for head coach Jonathan Hernandez. And I know that this is a team achievement, but allow me to separate for a moment the same way that I separated Andre Martinez before detailing Bethune-Cookman versus FAMU. I would like to separate Jonathan Hernandez from the team before I talk about what what Bethune-Cookman's path is going to be. If you're a Bethune-Cookman fan and you're older than I'm sorry. I did not mean to pause on the old. Okay. I know it's been a little minute since you've been back into the tournament, but I did not mean to pause on the old. If you're a little bit older, you remember the days of Coach Melendez. You remember the days of Coach Beverland, right? I'm talking 98 to 2010 for Melendez. I'm talking 2011 to 2017 for Coach Beverland. These are the predecessors to Coach Hernandez. And it's not easy. I'm going to be very clear. It is not easy for you to turn around after having those two coaches. It's one thing to be dominant in the MEAC. It's one thing to be dominant, period, under a coach. But for that dominance to extend over the course of two separate coaches, now expectations are set. Now expectations are that whoever comes in is going to be a championship winning coach. And the fact that Hernandez hadn't got there yet, I'm sure, this is speculation, I'm sure there is some sort of pressure internally from just feeling like, man, I got to live up to what the coaches before me did. And then externally of, we win championships here. We've gone to a new conference and we haven't won a championship in, I guess, 3 years. It was 22, 23, 24. So like, you're looking at it like, man, when's the gold coming? When is the gold coming? I can understand how there will be a little bit of pressure, but with this victory over FAMU in the SWAC championship or in the SWAC tournament finals, you finally got that monkey off your back. Jonathan Hernandez is finally a championship winning coach. And I say finally kind of lightly, but it also expresses the difference in temperament because expectations are different for other schools, right? Like, I'm not sitting here thinking 4 or 5 years you finally won a championship, but at Bethune-Cookman, they may. You look at Jason Beverland. They're from 2011 to 2017. Won a championship in 2012, 2014, 2016, 2017. You're looking at Mervil Melendez from 98 to 2010. This is what, 13 years? Wins a championship in 99, 2000, 01, 02, 03, 04, 06, 07, 08, 09, 010, 10, 11. You got to look at it, man. These guys were rolling for years with Beverland, with Melendez. You're talking from 99 to 2017. 1, 2, 3. 3 schools won a championship from 2017 to 1999. That is a reign of dominance that expands over 2 coaches. You're not sitting there thinking, all right, man, well, we're going to be patient. We're going to wait for the next guy to get it together. I am certain that even with the greatness of recent seasons, you're getting a little bit antsy waiting for a tournament ring. I don't think anybody's going to confirm that to me right now, but that's just the way that I can assume that would play out. But I think what AD Theus said was very important. He says, when you think about what Hernandez has done with this team, not only this year, but all the years prior to, he's done a fantastic job. He creates a culture that is necessary. And the thing I love about this team is that he does his job, but this is a player-driven team. This is why they're champions. Anytime the coach is a coach-driven team, you can't win a championship. When it's a player-driven team, these are things that can happen for you. Culture often isn't built in a year. I know it's easy to assume your rollover culture, but that's not necessarily the case. Yes, it happened as the baton handed off from Melendez to Beverly, but it wasn't as smooth. And it's not as if Hernandez comes to Bethune as a grizzled vet. He wasn't. So it took him a little second to get his feet underneath him. That first year they went 17-38. They 17-38. But then they went 10-14 in conference that year. Then you go up. And I'm only going to read the overall records. 27-32, first year in the SWAC. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 33-27. The next year, you fall in a championship round. So you make it to the tournament finals. Next year, 32-27. The next year, which is this final season, 37-21. You go 24-5 in the conference. And you're looking at that, you never drop below 19 wins in the SWAC. So you've been a very successful team. You build into being a championship contender. This is not, let me be clear, this is not a situation where immediately you win. We probably want it to be if you're a Bethune-Cookman fan, but that was not the case. Instead, you had to take a year. That lump of 17-38 in 2019, the last year that you had in the MEAC with them. You got to understand, 2017 was a special season. And then Beverly leaves. You get an acting coach. And then you come back in 2019. And that's the first year of Hernandez. And like I said, it's not as if he has some expansive resume that extends to 3-4 colleges. He's been a high school head coach and then a lower level head coach. I can't remember which one it was, what subdivision he was at. But I think his head coaching career of combined is about 10 years before he gets to Bethune-Cookman. It's somewhere around there. It makes sense that he would need time to pause for a second, get himself together, but he did that really fast. He did that really fast. And I don't like looking at sports through a lens of championship or not. That is, to me, so reductionist. I do not like it. It does not actually represent what a season is like. Because imagine this. Imagine this. The first overall pick in the NFL draft in the 31st. Let's even be kind and say we'll take the two teams who made the Super Bowl. The first pick and the 30th pick are treated the same. The first pick and the 19th pick treated the same. Those two teams are drastically different. So to look at it simply through the lens of did you win a championship or not fair. But that is what happens when you have such high expectations when you're used to dominating on the baseball diamond. Like that's just what happens. So this was interesting to me. I want to make sure that we give a round of applause to Hernandez because for many people, I'm sure this was when you fully accepted. All right, we have a championship winning coach. Now, these other guys have multiple chips. We'll see what Hernandez is able to do moving forward. But I'm sure that getting your first one feels like a monkey off of the back. Now, let's move forward and talk about what Bethune-Cookman is heading into when it comes to the NCAA tournament. It ain't over. In the words of Ice Cube, it ain't over. You know what goes next. But we're going to talk about that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We've broken down what this means for Coach Hernandez, why this is such a big moment. But Bethune-Cookman punched their ticket in dramatic fashion. Andre Martinez with a knock right over center field. Two runners on base, one on first, one on second, walk-off home run, comeback victory over the rivals. You get your first championship in baseball since 2017 and your first bit of gold in the conference at all. This is the first SWAC title that Bethune-Cookman has acquired. This is something that AD Theus described as one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. Down to the wire, a 400-yard walk-off home run in a championship game. It doesn't get any bigger than that. The team is a winner. They exemplify what we talk about, the championship culture. By winning the SWAC tournament, the Wildcats have punched their ticket into the NCAA tournament. So you went from one tournament to another, and we're going to break down the latter because they're the only HBCU involved. So there's no other baseball for us to really discuss. Bethune-Cookman is the only HBCU involved. The MEAG doesn't have an automatic bid because they don't play baseball anymore. They do have some schools within the conference that have gone elsewhere to play baseball. None of them won the NEC. That honor went to Central Connecticut. Tennessee State didn't grab the OVC bid. That went to Little Rock. They're in the Baton Rouge regional. And then the CAA berth went to Northeastern, who, just like Bethune-Cookman, is in the Tallahassee regional. So we get back to this really quick. Bethune-Cookman, they're the 4th seed, I would say, obviously, but we'll get into some history in which Bethune-Cookman was not the 4th seed. But as you expect, a lot of times, these HBCUs are going to be the lowest seed that you can be. That's just kind of the expectation. It's unfair, but it's what it is. Bethune-Cookman comes in as the 4th seed, so they have to face the host. And the host is Florida State. It's a Tallahassee regional named after the city that the host school is located in. So you're going to have to face Florida State, who is coming off of their best finish in the ACC in over a decade. They went 17-10 in conference record. They finished as the runner-up in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And it's their first berth, or excuse me, it's Bethune-Cookman's first berth since 2017. So you're looking at both of these schools as having kind of bounce back performances in 2025. Best finish since 2014 for Florida State. The first berth since 2017 for Bethune-Cookman. And that was a special year. That was a special year for the Wildcats. And ironically, they had to face a team in Florida again. It's common, I guess, for them. In that year, they were in the Gainesville regional, which means they had to face the Gators. Shout out to Brandon Olson, host of Locked On Gators. Phenomenal host. Phenomenal, right? If you get a chance or you just feel like branching out, that is one of the shows that I would tell you to branch out to. But in that game or in that tournament, because it's a double elimination, Bethune-Cookman actually lost the first game. They were a 3 seed that year, and they lost to South Florida. They lost to South Florida in that first game, which is a 2v3, and then they rallied to win 3 games in a row. They beat whoever the 4 seed was, and then they came back and they beat South Florida that next year or that next game. And then they come back and they play Florida, which is the top dog. This is the team that hosts the region. This is the team that is considered to be the best in that region, expected to win. And this is the regional final. First off, you made history by making it to the regional final to face Florida. But then you went and you beat Florida. I wish I could have been there because I know it's going crazy, right? I was in school. I was trying to do whatever. This is 2017. I'm still at Texas Southern kicking it, right? I'm thinking around this time, I'm out of school. So I'm really not worried about it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Bethune-Cookman rallies off 3 straight victories. The second one was against South Florida. So you get your lick back there. Now you're in the regional finals and you face Florida. You face actual Florida and the University of Florida. You win that game. So now you're looking at, man, I'm a game away from winning a region. I'm a game away from winning regionals. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But as you see, after that first game, it was 1-9 that they lost to South Florida. After that, every other game is very condensed. Every other game is very close. The last one, I think it was 6-1 that you lose. So you see when the bats kind of taper off, you see the impact that has on Bethune-Cookman. But that was 8 years ago. So I don't want to talk like it's current. How has this iteration of the Wildcats fared against bigger schools? You got beat bad by Miami. You played South Florida again this year. You actually won that one in extra innings. So as far as big schools go, you're 1-1 there. But I don't have to say, oh, well, they faced Miami and they faced South Florida. So let me compare how they may fare against a team like Florida State. I don't have to do that because they played Florida State. Bethune-Cookman and Florida State faced off earlier this year, and it was a close game. It was a comeback attempt by Bethune-Cookman because they gave up way too many runs early. They gave up 4 in the first, they gave up 4 in the fourth, and that's 8 total. And that was it, man. Like the bats came alive in the ninth inning for the Wildcats. They got 3 runs off in the ninth, the top of the ninth. But all in all, it was too late. The final score ended up being 9-7. So it was a very close game. It was a very, very close game. But at the same time, you could tell the need to come back. It was too daunting for you to overcome. If Bethune-Cookman is going to win this game, it needs to be low. I think you got to keep Florida State under 5, really under 4. If you're looking to win this game, you got to keep Florida State under 4 because now it allows for you to have to score less. But if it gets into a shootout, I'm not looking for that. You want a higher scoring game with South Florida. But here's the thing. I may win a certain way, but if I know that's not my route to victory, I just happen to be able to succeed that time, I'm not banking on it. Matter of fact, I'm still actively avoiding it. I know what my weaknesses are. If I overcome a challenge despite having to use my weakness, I'm not going to say, you know what, my weakness isn't a weakness anymore. I'm telling you right now, Bethune-Cookman, you need to keep Florida State under 4. So I can't wait to break it down with you guys on Monday's episode. We won't do it on Friday. Only the first game will happen by then. And I'll probably already have the episode recorded. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Depends on how I'm feeling. But we will recap the entirety of the regional of the Tallahassee regional on Monday. So in the meantime, in between time, I can't wait to see you guys on Friday. Take care. Stay blessed. Peace.